Hello and welcome to Say Hi to the Future, a podcast aimed at highlighting the human side of ingenuity. My name is Ken Tenser, CEO of SpyderWorks, a leading business consultancy for mid-market organizations and entrepreneurs globally. With me today is Lidia Soto-Harmon, CEO of Girl Scouts Nation Capital and former Deputy Director of the President's Interagency Council on Women. Like this video if you enjoy our show and subscribe to our channel. Leave us a comment with who we should interview next. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoy the show. Lidia, welcome to Say Hi to the Future.
Say hi to the future. Thank you, Ken. It's great to be here.
So Lidia, maybe I'm showing my age for those of us viewing, but you had a post in the late 90s that just fascinates me. You're the Deputy Director of the President's Interagency Council on Women during the Clinton administration. And it was shared by Secretary of State Madeleine Albright. What I think fascinates me, other than that time in history and the individuals that you worked with or served under, is that you were responsible for taking, if I understand correctly, decisions made in conferences about women and empowerment and making them happen. Can you tell us a little bit about that time?
Sure. It was a very interesting experience. I feel, as I look back in my career, I think that working I think it was 3 years and 10 months. I almost say 4 years, but somebody said to me, you should say 3 years and 10 months because that's what it was. But it was an incredible opportunity. This is as we were, the Fourth World Conference of Women had happened in Beijing, China. And so I came and I was not able to go because I was pregnant at the time. But this happened 5 years later, and we called it Beijing +5. Now we've already celebrated Beijing +25.
Wow.
But the idea was that there was a platform for action to advance women's human rights around the world. And this was the 5-year review. And so the President's Interagency Council on Women was really an opportunity for us to sort of do a review of what our country was doing and to attend all these different preparatory meetings. One was in Thailand, one was in Peru, one was in Switzerland, to really gather with other countries that had signed the platform for action to see what progress they were making on behalf of women. And so it was an incredible experience for me as a younger person, working with governments across the world, but really working internally with our governments to see what was our Department of Justice doing, what was Health and Human Services doing on behalf of women and girls. So it was an incredible experience, and it culminated in 2000. We had a special meeting at the United Nations, and I was able to attend along with, Secretary Albright was at the time, there as well. We had Ambassador Holbrooke, who's both have since passed away, who were with us to do the report of the United States. And it was the other interesting thing about that, Ken, is that this was, to sort of date myself, this was the first time when I left that position that we had to archive the actual website. Like that had never, the federal government, National Archives would come, of course, and archive all the documentation from your tenure to, for history's sake, but never had they really had to archive websites. And now that is a thing that so much of our information is now really electronic. So yeah, that was Say Hi to the Future back then.
That was it in the late 90s. So just looking back though, you talk about your response to Beijing +5 has become Beijing +25. Are there one or two moments that you've seen or witnessed over those decades in relation to the rights or furthering women's rights that just strike you as, yes, we accomplished something incredible?
Well, I think political participation is one area where I think we have seen an incredible change. A lot of countries have put in quota systems so that for a parliamentary process that there would be a certain number of women candidates that would be part of that party's slate. And I think that has created great opportunities for women around the world. We've had more women in positions of political power around the world than we did back in the 90s. I think that we've also done there's still a lot of work to do, but in girls' education, which was one of the areas that the platform talked about, how do we make sure that it seems kind of crazy for us to think about that a second grade education for our girls should not be a privilege, but should be a right. And we're still fighting to make sure that that's something that happens. There are still countries that are not able to do that. But, things like fighting female genital mutilation, I think that now that is something that I don't think there is anybody that would say, well, no, that is that cultural practice of that country. Back then, there was still some of that thinking, well, is that something that we need to do? So, my friend Stephanie Foster, who was involved with me in some of this work and might be a good podcast person for you if you're interested in these issues, just recently wrote a book about the status of women and girls and where are we now. And it's a wonderful book that shows all the progress that we have made in these 25 years.
Thank you for that. And I mean, it really is a great lead up to what you're doing today, because you are helping, I would say, younger women, those that don't remember archiving like we do. And that is your position as a CEO of the Girl Scouts, the nation's capital, in Washington. So what led you to the Girl Scouts and helping fashion the future of younger women and their potential?
I think that I've always been very interested in organizations where I can make a difference. And, young people, families, women, these are all things that I've, cared about my whole life. I grew up in Latin America, and I saw a lot of poverty and a lot of inequities in the countries where my family lived. And I think that really had a big impression on me to say, I want to make the world a better place, which is one of the Girl Scouts tenets. So, I was lucky that I was headhunted in, as they say. It was not on my radar until I received that call from the headhunter saying, there's this great opportunity at Girl Scouts, and would you be interested in exploring? And I did, and that was 17 years ago. I've now been I was the COO for 6 years, which was a fantastic experience, because even though I had done, international work and done all sorts of different things, I'd never sort of run a really big operation like the Girl Scouts. And so I had a chance to do that. And I think that really informed the way that I lead now as the CEO. I think that the issues that young people face today are just as pressing. Actually, I think in some ways, technology has made it even harder to be a young person today than it was maybe when we only had 36 pictures to a roll of film. And those are the pictures we were taking of our children. And now, they say that a young person will have taken or been taken more than 1 million pictures before they are 18 years old, which is a lot of pictures.
So, I mean, you raised something very interesting, just for background for the listeners. Girl Scouts founded in 1912, 18 girls in Savannah. I believe you're around 2 to 2.5 million
Yes.
population today. If I say that correctly, it's about bringing dreams to life and working together to build a better world. The world has changed so dramatically. I mean, I have 3 kids, 3 stepkids. My 3 daughters, one's in social media, one's in med school, and one just got her master's in international affairs. Social media didn't exist. Yeah, med school, I know that women became doctors in the mid 1800s, late 1800s. In the criminal court in The Hague, where Sophia was for a summer scholarship, is only about 20 odd years, in pure existence. Boy, are you working with a different world today than 1912. So what are some of the changes, and how do you prepare young women to succeed?
So it's interesting. It is a brand new world, but also it is the values that we have for young people are still the same values, be honest and fair, considerate and caring, courageous and strong. These are all things that, whether you were growing up at the time that our founder, Julia Gordon-Low, was around in 1912, or you are growing up now, those value systems are still in place. So I think that the difference, I would say, is that now what we find, because quite honestly, it's kind of like an antidote, because there is so much social media and there are so many opportunities. One of the most important things that we do in Girl Scouts, we have 4 pillars. One is entrepreneurship. The cookie sale is a big part of that. One is the great outdoors and stewardship of the outdoors, being outdoors. That is such an important pillar. We also have STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, and arts, because we know that that's going to be very important for the future. And the fourth one, we call it life skills, which is, everything from, you name it. Well, everything fits into it's social emotional health, I call it. But the outdoor one, I will say, is one that we find parents are drawn more and more to, because quite honestly, we have 8 beautiful camps where troops camp every weekend, and we do sleepaway camps. And I am happy to say that our connectivity at our camps is not very good for the cell phones. And so as a result, they have to put them down, and they have to be enjoying, we know that they have kids are growing up with an outdoor deficit. Partnership we've done for some years with the State Park Service and the National Park Service to try to get kids outdoors and sleeping under the stars at least once before they finish the 4th grade, because we know that if you don't have that experience early in your life, it is harder as you get older and have more phobias of spiders or whatever it is, that you will pick that as a pleasurable activity. And yet, all the research points to the fact that those values, that being outdoors, using your body for strength, like now I was reading something about how elder Americans thrive if they have meaningful relationships in their 80s, that is one of the indicators of whether you will live a long life is whether you have meaningful relationships. And so those are values that, yes, we have all sorts of really exciting badges, STEM badges, artificial intelligence, and, you name it. There's all sorts of really exciting new things that are happening. And yet the foundation that we have, which is, be kind to others, help make the world a better place. Those things are really what I think has made this organization that is 111 years old continue to thrive.
And I love what you're saying, especially about the outdoors and getting people together. And obviously we had a little blip over the past few years where we couldn't do certain things. But I just find today, whether it's teaching or activities, I like to see people get together. I just think there's a different dynamic. There's a different learning. There's a different development of or understanding of what empathy is. And when you talk about making the world a better place, no empathy, no better.
Right.
At least
well, it's so funny that you say empathy. So that, our motto is to build girls of courage, confidence, and character. And I've always said that I think that there should be a 4th C, and it's compassion. Because I think that that's one of the things that we see in girls. We just had this troop. This is such a sweet story in Frederick, Maryland. They sent us the pictures. They decided to do a scarf bomb in downtown Frederick. So what they did is they made scarves. They made 50 scarves, and they tied them to poles, to benches, to everything, and with a little note saying, "It's cold outside. This scarf is for you. Please, please take it and wear it." And it's a simple act of kindness, but they were all gone that day because they were very cute. And for those 50 people who picked up those scarves, they felt compassion. They felt, it put a smile on their face. And sometimes things as simple as that are also incredibly important.
I mean, it seems to me, and I've just read a few of the stories, that it's a foundation for, I mean, not a guarantee of success, but there's so many successful stories of young girls who become powerhouses, whether it's on the social front or in their careers. I mean, are there a few examples from?
Well, you were just talking about my former boss, Madeleine Albright. You know, every female Secretary of State, whether it was Condoleezza Rice or Hillary Clinton or Madeleine Albright, all grew up as Girl Scouts. So that's amazing.
That's a pretty good start.
That's a pretty good start. Every woman, we need to say, I think it's like 96% of all women astronauts who've flown in outer space were all Girl Scouts. Sally Ride was not a Girl Scout, but everybody else was a Girl Scout. Elena Ochoa, the first Latina to fly in outer space, she was a Girl Scout. You know, in Congress, I think it's the numbers are, it changes with every class, but you know, of the women who are serving our country in both the Senate and the House, it's, you know, close to 60% of them were Girl Scouts. In the Senate, we even have a higher number. So yeah, no, it is incredible to think the women who have, you know, there's celebrities and people like that, but just the exposure, I think that it's had and it continues to have for girls today is incredible. That just having, we have a Girl Scout Leadership Institute that has done research that shows that only being in Girl Scouts for 3 years can have a lifetime of impact. We have so many women who are now our mentors who say, oh, but you know, I was a Girl Scout, but I never received the highest earned award in Girl Scouts, which is the Gold Award. And it's like, yeah, but you were in Girl Scout for more than 3 years. You are who you are because you were impacted by those incredible troop leaders and incredible volunteers who dedicate themselves to helping, you know, these young people develop and thrive.
And it strikes me that some of what you're describing is one, instilling confidence in the younger girls. It's confidence, it's being able to work in a team, and it's being able to realize success, even if it's, you know, 50 scarves. I mean, 50 scarves is 50 scarves, and helping people is helping people. It doesn't, you know, at 8 years old, you don't have to change your world, but if you change somebody's world, I think that's a great start. So are these some of the things that you see instilled? Are there others that bring about the successes you're speaking to?
Oh my goodness, there's so many stories, Ken, of what girls are doing that you know, like one that comes to mind as we're talking about the outdoors. We have something at our camps where parents can send a care package to a girl who's spending a week at camp, a camper who's there. And this Girl Scout noticed that not every camper had their parent have a care package for them, because, you know, sometimes we have, you know, not all parents do that, right? And we have a lot of scholarships for girls to attend, but that was not something that we were focusing on. So this Girl Scout took her cookie proceeds and made 100 care packages and delivered them to camp, so that if there was any week a girl that did not get a package, that there would be a care package for that camper. So just so sweet, you know, and at age 8 or 9 to have the ability to see that is just incredible. But then, you know, also with the Gold Award, which is our highest earned award, it requires more than 80 hours of work to receive that. I have seen you know, Girl Scouts do just incredible things. We have just from last year, our two teen board members from last year, each started their own nonprofit. One of them is doing a nonprofit in Africa to help bring new books to children in African countries. The other one is started a nonprofit to look at space science, space medical science. She has interviewed more than 80 STEM professionals for aerodynamics and space, the space industry. And then they're freshmen, you know, first year in college, and this is what they did when they were in high school. I can only imagine what the future is going to bring for those two amazing Girl Scouts. So yeah, the stories are really, that's what inspires me, is to know what incredible impact the organization is having on young people.
So we've talked about obviously the impact on the individuals themselves and their community outreach. You touched on outreach to family. How do you involve family in the Girl Scouts and showing, or just and showing what incredible skills or thoughts that these young girls are developing?
Well, if you've met, and anybody who has been involved in the cookie program, if they've been they call them a cookie mom or a cookie dad, it is a family affair. I remember when my daughter was a Girl Scout, the living room and dining room was just covered in boxes, and we had to tell the brother and the dad, no, you can't eat them because we've sold all these cookies, we have to deliver them. And everybody, it was a family affair putting it together. I think that, a lot of the troop leaders, as you can imagine, are mothers, but we have a lot of young professionals who want to give back because they remember how rewarding that was. We have a lot of fathers as well, single parents, who want to be involved in their Girl Scouts life in some meaningful way, and know that one way to do that is to be a co-leader for a troop. And I think that the other way that we involve parents is that we really believe in something we call the troop committee. For too long, and maybe as you think about maybe in the 50s, where a lot of mothers were at home full time and they could just be troop leaders, I would say 98% of our current volunteers all have daytime jobs. So it requires more support from other family members to be able to do this. I know when my daughter was in the Girl Scouts, we had a co-op. So there were 12 girls and 12 moms, and every month one mom was in charge of the girls and the activities, as a way of spreading the responsibility. We all worked, but we all wanted our children to be part of it. So, and I think that the other thing that happens with families is that they see they see the difference in their children. I've had parents come to me and say, I'm so grateful that she started with this troop in kindergarten. Now she's in middle school. She's struggling. A lot of young women struggle in middle school because it's such a different, the world changes both physically for them and emotionally. But they have this set of friends that they've known since they were in kindergarten, and they're not necessarily in their school. They meet at a rec center or whatever, and they have a group of friends to bounce ideas off and to not feel like sometimes how they feel in their own environment. So I can see how families are involved in everything that we do.
That's great. And I was giggling over your whole cookie story because I think we've all seen or bought those in our lifetime a few million times probably. How does, and you've talked to some of the changes. I mean, obviously since 1912, those are incredible, but the pace of change is so quick now. The opportunities to young people in general, not just young girls, the social pressures. How does an organization that is so large keep up and adapt and help the next generation cope with ever-changing challenges?
Well, that's a daunting task. We are fortunate that we're part of a federated system. So we are, in the United States, we're 111 councils across the United States. We have a strong national office based in New York City that helps with the brand, with the programming, and with chartering the different organizations across the country. I happen to run the largest Girl Scout council in the system, so work very closely with the national organization on everything from how do we make sure that programming, one of the things that we are doing more and more, as any good nonprofit needs to do, is finding corporate partners that are like-minded, that want to help fund some of the activities that we want to do, whether it's in the outdoor or entrepreneurship. And so I think we are able to do it because we are, how do I say this? We are both local and national. Like
Right.
most Girl Scouts would not necessarily know what quote council they belong to, because it actually doesn't matter. It just matters that they know that they're Girl Scouts. And yet locally we have such community roots, which is, you know, to me, that is the key to our success, that we are really grounded in our community. I'll tell you a funny story. During the pandemic, I took to walking a lot. I need to get back to that, but I was walking every afternoon. I would just walk my neighborhood over and over again, and thinking about the Girl Scouts. And it was during cookie season, which is right now. So everybody who's listening, please buy Girl Scout cookies. And I got to where we have like a little pool, and all of a sudden there were two Girl Scouts. The mom had made a truck out of cardboard, had a plexiglass in front so that, because this is during pandemic, so the girls would not be, and they were selling Girl Scout cookies. And this mom had the brilliant idea of bringing food trucks to the neighborhood so that she knew that people were coming to get their dinner, and there were the Girl Scouts selling Girl Scout cookies. And what that story told me is as much as I am worried about, of course, how are we going to make everything work, it has its engine of its own. That mom and those Girl Scouts were there because they were excited to share what they were doing. And so sometimes I think as professional Girl Scouts, we kind of have to step back and say, it's so wholesome, it's so good that it will continue to thrive.
That to me is the power of purpose. And thank you for sharing that. And as our time comes to a close today on Say Hi to the Future, I do have one last question, and it goes to September of last year. You sat on a panel to discuss the topic of Latino leadership. Mm-hmm. And just wondering some of the successful factors that you see going into creating a successful Latino leader.
Yeah, so as a Latina myself, it is, very exciting that I get to, along with all the other amazing things that this job has allowed me to do, I started a conference for young Latinas, immigrant girls, Encuentro de Chicas Latinas, it's called, and it's now in its 18th year. We bring, between 150 to 300 girls from all over the region, and really try to instill in them this sense that you can do it. I think one of the things that we believe in Girl Scouts is you can't be what you can't see. That's why women mentors are so important. That's why, all the Girl Scout greats, as I call them, that came before us. But for these young Latinas, bringing them to a university setting, many of them will be hopefully the first generation of their family to attend college. So bringing them to a university setting, and we've been fortunate that the president of Marymount University, a friend, has been able to open her campus for us to do this, Dr. Irma Becerra. And then bringing, people from the accounting world, from the PR world, people who also were immigrants to this country, who came, who spoke English with an accent. I spoke English with an accent when I first came to the United States at 15, and with, hard work and with purpose, as you said, Ken, have made something of themselves and hopefully giving back to community. So that's, what I see in these girls is that resilience. It's when you have to translate for your parents and this is not just true for Latina immigrants, but for any immigrant family, when you are the person who is translating at school events and at doctors' events and worried about how do you make sure that your family is intact, those are real issues. So anything that Girl Scouts can do to give them a place where they can thrive and learn about new opportunities we're so fortunate that thanks to our donors, we have financial assistance for girls who need it. And that is key for that community, but for so many communities, whether it's rural West Virginia, whether it's, inner city DC, whether it's, girls in suburbia, everybody needs financial assistance to continue to do this program.
Well, thank you for sharing that. It's certainly a heartfelt undertaking. You can hear it as you describe it. I loved what you said. You can't be what you can't see. I think that just goes true for all of us growing up and setting a foundation in our lives. So Lydia Soto-Harmon, thank you so much again
Thank
for
you,
being on
Ken.
Say Hi to the Future.
Oh, thank you. It went by fast. It was a great interview.
Thanks.